participate? Do you want to come here and say hello? Say hello. Say any noises that you hear throughout this video are me. What's up guys, it's Ella. Welcome to my channel, whether you're new here or not. Today we are going to be doing my September wrap up. I know, it's like the middle of October, not the middle of October, it's the first week of October, but I do know that I'm a little bit late in posting my September wrap up. I'm hoping you can forgive me and we can move past this. I just didn't have time to film it as early as I wanted to, and so here we are. I forget how many books I read in September, so let's take a little gander. Let's take a look. So I read 7 books in the month of September, which is on the lower end of average for me. I usually read or try to read about 10 books a month. Some months are lower, some months are higher, and this month was just a little bit lower, but that's okay. That's fine. We persevere. It doesn't matter how many books you read per month. It is way more important whether you enjoyed them, and we'll talk about it. I enjoyed some. Didn't enjoy all, but I enjoyed some. So let's start talking about the 7 books that I read in September. We are not starting off strong. The first book that I read for this, the first book I read in the month of September is The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie. I gave this book 2 stars. 2 stars. Oh, I was feeling particularly vicious and I gave this book 1 star. I hated this book. I'm a little bit sick, so if my voice sounds weird or if anything, that's probably why. I hated this book. So basically this book is a mafia romance. If you want my in-depth thoughts on it, go watch my reading mafia romances for a week video, because this was the 3rd book that I read for that video. I read the first 2 in August, and this one I gave it 1 star. It's about, I don't even remember. It's with this girl who is the daughter of, or from a very prominent mafia family, and she did something bad with a guy and was like denounced by her family and is consistently denounced by her family. Her sister's supposed to marry this guy that is the don of another mafia, a different mafia. Is that correct? I don't know. He's a don for a mafia. He's a mafia boss. And he is set to marry the main character's sister. Can't remember anybody's names. I'm shocked that I've remembered this much of the plot. And obviously, like, it's a romance, so the main character ends up actually falling for her sister's fiance. And I just hated it. I hated every single character. I hated the way everyone spoke to each other. If it hadn't been for a video, I would have DNF'd. I was so close to DNFing. So close to DNFing. The next book I read in the month of September was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Prior to September, I hadn't read a lot of thrillers. I still wouldn't say that I've read a lot of thrillers, but that definitely has been a genre that I found myself gravitating to more recently in September and into October. And this was kind of the start of that. This was the book that I picked up when I first got into the thriller mood. I picked up this book because I love my favorite thriller. Well, one of my 2 favorite thrillers that I've ever read is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I thought that book was so phenomenal. I absolutely loved Riley Sager's writing. So the concept for this book sounded really interesting to me. This book is about a woman who is a famous actress. Her mother was a famous actress as well. She grew up going to this lake every summer, and then she grows up, becomes this famous actress. She gets married. Her husband dies at the lake. He drowns in the lake. Her husband drowns in the lake, and she develops a drinking problem, and as a result of her husband's death. And she gets a lot of bad press about it, and so her mother, who's very concerned about image, sends her daughter to this lake house that she grew up going to and the place that her husband dies. So she's spending some time at this lake house, and the couple who bought the lake house across the lake is like a famous model and a tech guy. And I guess like the whole back half of their house is glass, which I would never purchase a house with any sort of, that sounds like a nightmare in itself. Anyway, Casey, the main character, watches this couple in the house across the lake, and one day the wife ends up missing. This book had me for probably the first 70%. I was like, this could be a 5-star read. This is phenomenal. This book is so, so good. And then the ending happened. And I don't know what I expected the twist to be, but it wasn't that. I didn't expect that. Consider me twisted, consider me thrilled, consider me shocked and awed. Don't consider me impressed, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. This book gets, like I said, 3 stars because I just kind of hated the twist. Just hated it. It didn't, I think one of my friends on Goodreads said something like, I don't know where I was expecting this book to go, but it wasn't there. And I just didn't like it. 3 stars because the writing was phenomenal, the build up and the set, like, it was set up so well and it had so much potential, and then potential died. But then I read The 7-Year Slip. I don't know why I held it like that. We recovered very well because then I read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. And Ashley Poston has this way of making books that I read the synopsis and go, that's not for me. She makes them for me. They are for me. This book is about a girl named Clementine West. Her aunt, she grew up very close to this aunt that she had that lived in New York City in an apartment, and that aunt passes away. So when that aunt passes away, Clementine inherits her apartment that her aunt always said was magic, and Clementine was kind of like, that, okay, whatever, like thinking she just meant it had really good vibes. I don't know what she thought she meant. She didn't think it was actually magic and could time travel, but guess what? It can. One day, Clementine comes home to this apartment, and there is a man that she does not know in this apartment. His name's Ewan, I think. It's spelled I-W-A-N, and so I said Ewan. I could be quite incorrect. Ewan is there, and basically Clementine realizes that Ewan is 7 years in the past. Ewan is staying in this apartment. He's subletting it from her aunt 7 years in the past. And then there is like a storyline, so it kind of goes 7 years in the past for him, for Ewan's storyline, and then it comes to the present. It's hard to explain, and it sounds like it would be really weird and kind of like a frustrating read. That's what I thought. Knowing how much that I absolutely loved The Dead Romantics, which was also a synopsis that I didn't feel particularly drawn to, and I actually picked up that book on accident, I was willing to give this book a chance because I was like, she made me love The Dead Romantics. She somehow took that synopsis and that storyline and turned it into something I love, so I will give this one a chance as well, and I'm so glad I did because I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I bawled my eyes out at this book, first of all. Cried very ugly tears. And was like texting my friends, was like, you need to read this book, you need to read this book, because it was just phenomenal. Some of the lines in this book, it was so good. I definitely recommend picking it up. Pick up, it's, you know, it's October, pick up The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston while we're at it, but that's not what, I didn't read that in September, so I read this one in September, and I'm really glad I did. 5 stars. I'm pretty sure not even pretty sure, I know for sure Ashley Poston is an author for me. I will buy anything, I will read anything she writes, because she has yet to let me down. After that, I wanted to go back on my little thriller kick, and I read A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. Yeah. This book is about a girl named Chloe. That's what her name is. This is about a girl named Chloe who 20 years prior to the start of this book, her father was convicted of being was convicted for murder. He was a serial killer. Her dad was a serial killer. Basically, he killed a whole bunch of young girls in Chloe's town growing up. Then you flash to present day, and murders like the ones her dad committed are starting to happen in the town that Chloe moved to when she was an adult. So she's living in this town, and like the murders with the exact same MO are happening again. And Chloe has to deal with that, and she's determined to figure out like what's happening because her dad's still in prison, so he can't still be the one killing these girls. So that was this book. I picked this up on a whim. I saw it at Target and was like, yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna read that because I was in a thriller mood. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a little bit slow at some parts. Like there were some parts that were definitely boring and this book could have been shorter, but I think it's only like, it's 370 pages. I think it probably could have been close to like 320. There was probably a solid 50 pages that I was bored, but the ending I really enjoyed. My mom read this book and she said that she thought the ending was predictable, and I try really hard not to predict the ends of books. I want to be surprised. I want that element. I don't want to like think about it too much. So I just kind of read and enjoy the journey and try not to predict the end. So if you're someone who tries to predict the ending to books and writes down theories and things like that, then this may not be the book for you. You might find it kind of predictable, but I definitely was surprised. So I would recommend it. It was a really good book. Definitely would recommend, as I've already stated. Let's do a coffee break. Oh boy, 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 oh boy. Okay. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Next, I read a book for my book club that I have with a bunch of my friends. We read Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance by Alison Esbach. This book is about a girl named Sally, and she has an older sister named Kathy. Yes. And Sally like worships the ground that Kathy walks on. And then one day, Kathy's boyfriend Billy and Sally are in the car on the way to school. They get into a car accident. Billy's driving. They get into a car accident and Kathy dies. Sally and Billy both survive. And it starts out as the story about grief and, you know, like what happens when your favorite person in the world dies and you share that trauma with only one other person. Like Billy was the only person who kind of understood what Sally was going through. So the back kind of says it. And it's, hold on, it says opening in the early 90s and charting almost 2 decades of shared history and missed connections, Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance is a dazzlingly unconventional love story that brims with unexpected moments of joy. So Billy and Sally fall in love, and they have kind of like a toxic relationship where both of them, it spans over 2 decades, both of them have other experiences, they move away, they have other significant others, and then they always find their way back to each other. And it's not a romance. I wouldn't say it's a romance, but I would say that if you liked Normal People by Sally Rooney, it might be worth giving this a try. I'm not saying that you'll definitely like it, and I'm not saying that they're all that similar, but it does have the like toxicity and the will they, won't they, like that kind of situation that I think Normal People has. I gave this book 3 stars. I thought it was fine. I thought it was interesting and it was wild, and every single page I was like, well, what's gonna happen next? I think it was too long. I'll show you one of the earliest pages. Look at that font. That's tiny font. Oh, we're getting a fun little sunbeam situation. Great. This book is much longer than it looks because the font is so small. The general consensus in my book club was my best friend Cheyenne, who loves Normal People, actually. She absolutely loved this book. Other people did not love this book. This is really bothering me, but we're just gonna deal with it. So other people in my book club did not love this book. I think that it is worth giving a try if you like literary fiction or if you're a fan of Normal People. It might be worth giving it a shot. It's wild though. It's a wild book. Then I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This is a book about Win and Beau. Win has she has like a underdeveloped arm, and Beau lost his leg. So they have that connection when they meet at a Halloween party, and they are both dressed as a pirate because she has like a hook and he has a peg leg, which I think is a very fun little meet cute, and I think that's very funny that like that's how they connected. They have a one-night stand at this Halloween party, and then Win ends up pregnant. She doesn't even know Beau's last name. She doesn't know what he was doing at the Halloween party because like it was her best friend's Halloween party, but her best friend was like, I don't even know what guy you're talking about. Like I don't know what he was doing there. And then it's the accidental pregnancy trope, which is Not one of my favorites, and not a lot of people's favorites, but the general consensus, and I 100% agree, is that this is better than just about any other accidental pregnancy trope book that I have ever read and that other people have ever read. This, basically, like, even if you don't like that trope, you should still give this book a try, and I think that's the general consensus. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It was so close to a 5. Like, I think I would actually probably give it like a 4.5. It was so close to a 5, but just not quite there. I don't know. You know the 5-star feeling, like, you know it, if you know. And I just didn't know with this one, but it was really, really good. I thought it was so cute. I thought that Win and Bo's communication was really good. I think that the way that it was like slow burn-ish. I mean, obviously, like, they hook up right at the beginning, and they know that there's this mutual attraction because they hooked up, but they also now have, you know, the stakes are higher. There's a baby on the way. So if things get messed up, then they're, you know, like, then it's awkward and they have to co-parent for the next, you know, for literally the rest of their lives. So they're very cautious of that, and it's kind of a slow burn as a result of that. And I thought that that was really, really fun. There's forced proximity because they end up, like, moving in together. I just really loved this book. I absolutely loved Bo. I loved him. And I would strongly recommend this book, even if you aren't a huge fan of the accidental pregnancy trope. Then the last book that I read in the month of September, I have a relatively unpopular opinion on. I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I feel like this book has a 4.27 on Goodreads. I feel like everybody and their mother absolutely loves this book. I know Sara Caroli, this is one of her 5-star reads. She absolutely loved it. So I was like, I had high expectations going into this book, and I thought it was so boring. I thought this book was so boring. I was so close to DNFing it, but I was like, there's so many people love it, and I don't know. I just wanted to finish it, and I just kept waiting for it to get better, and it just didn't get better. This book is about a girl named Iris and a boy named Kit. Iris, they live in, like, this magical world where there's a war between gods, and a lot of people have joined the war on, like, one side or the other. Iris's brother joined for the god, I think. I don't remember if he joined for the god or goddess side. Regardless, her brother joined the war. Iris is a writer at this newspaper, and so is Roman, and they're, like, enemies. They compete, they're competing for this job, and they're also competing, they compete for articles, they compete for stories, they just compete, and then that's kind of the gist. But then there's also this one part where Iris is writing on her typewriter, on this, like, typewriter she didn't know was magical. She's writing to her letters to her brother, and then she puts them in her, like, closet. And when she goes to check the closet, every single time the letters are missing. But then one day she gets a reply, and it's, like, the reader knows that it's Roman, but Iris doesn't know it's Roman. And so they are also communicating through this, like, magical closet typewriter situation. And that all sounds so well and good, and I really just thought it was boring. I gave this book, like, 2.5 stars. I think the thing is, it's a cozy fantasy, and if I'm reading a fantasy, I'm reading a fantasy for, like, action and high stakes. If I want to read something cozy and just, like fun, I'll read a romance. I just thought this was just boring. I read a fantasy for excitement, for a good time, for action, and this just had none of the above. I will probably not be reading the second book. I know it comes out in December, and it just isn't one that particularly interests me. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, so don't let that discourage you from reading this book. If it sounds interesting to you, or if you've heard other people talk about it and it's on your TBR, definitely give it a try, because I think it's really well written. It is beautifully written. I think Rebecca Ross does a phenomenal job. She's, like, a really good author. I just think that the story was boring, but the lines and the way the book was written, absolutely beautiful. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of September. thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you when I see you. Bye, guys.